every discovery has a beginning. Welcome to Origin Archives. Every story has a beginning. Imagine spending an entire year working for something only to lose it overnight. Not because you made a bad investment, not because the market crashed, but because someone simply stole it. 4,000 years ago, this wasn't an uncommon tragedy. It was a fact of life. Long before bank accounts, password, or steel walls, wealth looked very different. It wasn't numbers on a screen. It was sacks of barley stacked after months of exhausting labor. It was a handful of silver earned from a dangerous trading journey. It was the flock of sheep your family depended on to survive another winter. Everything you own had a physical form, and everything you own would disappear. A fire could destroy your harvest. Floodwaters could sweep away months of work. Raiders could arrive before sunrise and leave with everything. For the people of ancient world, protecting wealth wasn't about growing richer. It was about staying alive. Yet, as civilizations grow, another problem emerged. Keeping your wealth hidden also meant it couldn't be used. A farmer who needed seed for the next harvest couldn't simply borrow from a bank. A merchant planning a journey to a distant city had no safe way to finance the trip. Communities were becoming larger. Trade was becoming more ambitious. But the systems people relied on hadn't kept pace. Humanity had reached a turning point. It didn't just need a safer place to store wealth. It needed a new way to think about wealth itself. And the solution would come from an unexpected place. Not from a king, not from a battlefield, not from a great invention of metal or stone, but from an idea built on something invisible: trust. It would become one of the most influential ideas in human history, laying the foundation for institutions that now move trillions of dollars every day. This is the story of the earliest known banking practices and how they helped shape civilization itself. To understand where banking began, we have to travel back more than 4,000 years to a land known as Mesopotamia, a Greek name meaning the land between two rivers, nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates, in what is now largely modern-day Iraq. This fertile region gave rise to some of humanity's earliest cities, including Ur, Urk, and later Babylon. Many of the foundations of civilization emerge here. The earliest known writing, complex legal systems, large-scale agriculture, long-distance trade. As city expanded, life became more prosperous but also more complicated. Farmers produced more grain than their families could consume. Merchants traveled hundreds of kilometers carrying silver, textile, timber, and precious stones. Craftsmen specialized in making tools, pottery, and jewelry. For the first time, people were creating significant surplus wealth. But there was one problem. There was nowhere truly safe to keep it. A successful harvest represented months of relentless work beneath the Mesopotamian sun. A merchant silver might be the reward for surviving dangerous journeys through desert and mountain passes. Losing those possessions wasn't simply an inconvenience. It could mean losing the ability to feed a family, repay a debt, or begin the next season's work. The more civilization advanced, the more dangerous this problem became. Because prosperity created something worth stealing. And as trade connected strangers from distant cities, trust became increasingly difficult. Civilization had solved the problem of producing wealth, but it still hadn't solved the problem of protecting it. That solution was about to emerge from the heart of ancient Mesopotamia. If you had lived in ancient Mesopotamia, there was one place in your city unlike any other, the temple. Today, we often think of temples simply as places of worship, but in Mesopotamia, they were much more than that. They were among the city's largest and strongest buildings. They owned farmland, managed storehouses, employed workers, collected offerings, organized harvests, and kept delighted administrative records. In many ways, they were the economic heart of the community. More importantly, they were trusted. To the people of Mesopotamia, a temple was not merely a building, it was the earthly home of a god. Stealing from a temple wasn't just theft, it was believed to be an offense against the divine itself. That belief gave temples something incredibly valuable: confidence. When families wanted to protect surplus grain, silver, or other valuables, temples offered something no private home could provide: security. Not because they had stronger locks, but because they had the trust of an entire community. And that trust became one of history's most valuable resources. Of course, trust alone wasn't enough. Imagine depositing 50 sacks of barley after harvest. Months later, how would anyone remember exactly how much belonged to you? Memory fades, people disagree, promises can be forgotten. Civilization needed something more reliable. It needed a permanent record. By this time, Mesopotamia had already developed one of the world's earliest known writing systems, cuneiform. Using a reed stylus, scribes pressed wedge-shaped symbols into soft clay tablets, creating records that could survive for thousands of years. Many of the earliest surviving tablets don't tell stories of kings or great battles. Instead, they record something surprisingly ordinary: deliveries of grain, inventories of livestock, payments to workers, loans, receipts, list of goods entering and leaving temple storehouses. These humble records reveal something extraordinary. The earliest known writing was used primarily to solve practical problems of administration and accounting. In other words, before writing preserved history, it helped manage the economy. Thousands of these clay tablets has been uncovered by archaeologists, offering direct evidence of how ancient Mesopotamian institutions organized resources and record financial agreements. It is one of the rare moments in history where we can read the everyday paperwork of civilization that existed more than 4,000 years ago. But storing wealth was only the beginning. Soon, the temples realized something important. Most of the grain stored in their warehouses wasn't needed immediately. It was sitting idle. Imagine a farmer whose crops had failed after a season of poor weather. He still had fertile land. He still had the knowledge to farm. What he lacked was seed grain for the next planting season. Without help, his family might not survive another year. The temple could provide that grain, not as a gift, but as a loan. After the next harvest, the farmer would return what he had borrowed, along with an agreed additional amount. The earliest surviving evidence of interest-bearing loans comes from ancient Mesopotamia, where both grain and silver were commonly lent under written agreements. This was a remarkable shift in human history. Wealth was no longer something that simply sat in storage. It could be used to create more wealth, A merchant could borrow silver to finance a trading expedition. A farmer could borrow grain to plant another harvest. Resources could move to where they were needed most. Without realizing it, the people of Mesopotamia had developed some of the earliest known banking practices in history. And with them, they unlocked an entirely new way for civilization to grow. But lending creates another question. What happens when someone refuses to repay? Who decides what's fair? And how do you protect a financial system from abuse? As banking practices become more common, ancient societies discovered that trust alone wasn't enough. They needed something else: the law. A financial system can only survive if people believe it is fair. Imagine lending grain to a farmer after a poor harvest or depositing silver with a trusted institution. What happens if someone breaks their promise? What happens if there is a dispute? Without clear rules, trust begins to disappear. Around 1750 BCE, Babylonian king Hammurabi introduced one of history's best-known legal codes. Carved into a massive stone monument, the Code of Hammurabi contained nearly 300 laws, covering everything from trade and property to wages and family life. Among them were laws governing loans, deposits, debt, and commercial agreements. Some required witnesses and written contracts for valuable deposits. Others addressed responsibility when property was entrusted to another person. These laws didn't invent banking, but they helped create something just as important: predictability. People could now enter financial agreements knowing that disputes would be judged according to established rules rather than personal power alone. For one of the first times in history, trust was reinforced not only by religion and reputation, but by law, and that made larger, more complex economics possible. Ideas rarely stay where they are born. As merchants crossed deserts and sailed across seas, they carried more than goods. They carried knowledge. Over the centuries, the principles first seen in Mesopotamia evolved as new civilization adapted them to their own needs. In ancient Greece, professional money changers known as trapezitai worked from tablets in busy marketplaces. They exchanged coins, accepted deposits, and provided loans to merchants navigating an increasingly connected Mediterranean world. Later, the Romans expanded these financial practices across a vast empire. Roman bankers, called argentari, helped manage deposits, exchange currency, and support trade that stretched from Britain to Egypt. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, banking in Europe declined, but the underlying ideas did not disappear. They continued to develop in the Byzantine Empire, across the Islamic world, and eventually flourished again in the great trading cities of medieval Italy. In places like Venice and Florence, banking became more sophisticated. Families such as the Medici introduced innovations like double entry bookkeeping and bills of exchange, allowing merchants to conduct business across long distance without carrying large amounts of gold or silver. By the time institutions such as the Bank of Amsterdam in 1609 and the Bank of England in 1694 were established, banking had evolved from temple storehouses into organized financial institutions serving entire nations. The methods had changed, the scale had changed, but the central idea remained remarkably similar: protect wealth, record trust, and help resources flow where they are needed. Most inventions solve a single problem. The wheel made transportation easier. The compass transformed navigation. The printing press spread knowledge. But banking was different. It didn't create wealth. It changed how wealth moved. It allowed people to save for the future, to borrow during difficult times, to invest in opportunities that would otherwise have been impossible. Cities expanded because merchants could finance trade. Farmers recovered after failed harvest because credit gave them another chance. Governments funded roads, ports, and public works by building on financial systems that had grown steadily more sophisticated over centuries. From ancient temples to global financial institutions, the details evolved. Yet, every stage of the journey was built upon a remarkably simple idea, first visible in Mesopotamia. A community is stronger when people can trust one another with what they value most. Thousands of years have passed since scribes pressed symbols into wet clay. Empires have risen and fallen. Currencies have changed. Technology has transformed almost every part of our lives. Yet, every time we save, borrow, invest, or make a payment, we are participating in a story that began more than 4 millennia ago. Today, we rarely stop to think about banking. A paycheck arrives automatically. A mortgage helps a family buy a home. A business receives a loan to build something new. A student pays tuition online. Money moves across continents in seconds with nothing more than a tap on a screen. To us, it feels effortless, almost invisible. Yet, behind every one of those transactions is an idea that has survived for more than 4,000 years. Not the buildings, not the currency, not even the technology. The idea that people can entrust something valuable to an institution with the confidence that it will be protected, recorded, and returned when needed. Clay tablets has become encrypted database. Temple storehouses have become banks and financial networks. Reed styluses have become smartphones, but the purpose remains remarkably similar: to protect value, to enable exchange, and to help people build a future that would otherwise be out of reach. History often remembers great battles, powerful kings, magnificent monuments, but some of the most important inventions are almost invisible. The earliest banking practices didn't begin with towering marble buildings or vaults filled with gold. They began with ordinary people trying to solve an ordinary problem. How do you protect what you have worked so hard to earn? And how do you create a future that one harvest or one journey cannot destroy? The answer wasn't found in stronger walls. It wasn't found in larger armies. It was found in something far more powerful: a shared system of trust. That simple idea allowed wealth to do more than sit in storage. It allowed it to circulate, to support trade, to recover from hardship, to finance innovations, and over thousands of years, it became one of the foundations upon which civilization were built. The next time you transfer money, swipe your card, or open your banking app, take a moment to remember where that story began. Not in a skyscraper, not on a stock exchange, but in the fertile lands between the Tigris and Euphrates, where ancient farmers, merchants, priests, and scribes searched for a safer way to protect their future. They could never have imagined online banking, global markets, or digital payments, but they created something that made all of them possible. Because civilizations are not built by stone alone, they are built by ideas, and sometimes the most powerful ideas are the ones we no longer notice. This was the story of the earliest known banking practices. A story not just about money, but about trust. And perhaps that was the greatest invention of all.